Välkomna till K-special. Kvällens dokumentär är en verklig närstudie av 4 världsberömda bilder. Till exempel den som ni ser bakom mig här, tagen 1968, när Saigons polischef skjuter en Vietcong-soldat och fotografen fångar så att säga själva dödsögonblicket. Men vad är det som gör ett fotografi världsberömt? Vad är det som ger en bild ikonstatus? Det frågar sig den här dokumentären. Utgångspunkt är något som heter World Press Photo. 1955 så startade det holländska fotograffacket en internationell tävling för att utse årets bästa bild. Tävlingen blev snabbt en institution och idag är den nog den mest prestigefyllda som finns och ger vinnarbilden en närmast automatisk ikonstatus. Den här dokumentären gjordes i samband med att tävlingen fyllde 50 och den heter Looking for an Icon.
I've been doing this all my life. And this picture's also hurt me a lot of ways. A lot of times pictures do lie. You know, this was like in 1968. And it was creating all this upset here in America. It would start causing demonstrations. And I didn't understand it. And I still don't understand it. Because during a war, people die in wars. And what I ask people a lot too, if you're this man, the general, and you just cut this guy after he killed some of your people. You know, it's a war. How do you know you wouldn't have pulled that trigger yourself? I think the 2 people died in that picture. Not only the man he shot, but him, the general. The photograph destroyed his life, and this was not the intentions to destroy his life. The intentions were to show what happened.
I became picture editor of New York Times in 1967. Soon thereafter, I tried to hire Eddie Adams, and he went all through the formalities of joining the New York Times and went back to AP to resign. And Wes Gallagher, the general manager of AP, said, "You can't do that. We'll give you any assignment you want." So Eddie told me he would not join the New York Times, and AP sent him to Vietnam, which is what he asked for. Eddie was among those, I would say, relatively few correspondents who really kind of believed in the Vietnam War. Some did, you know. I mean, not everybody who went there was a skeptic. I never went there, but I was a skeptic from the very beginning. But there were some who took the same position as the hawks in the Pentagon, who said, this is a war we have to win.
This is the building. I will show you where I work with Eddie Adams. Most of the time we work together on a story. because our office is next to one each other. On that day of the execution, the elevator doesn't work, so our crew have to go by the stairwell here, and we all running down, and Eddie Adams go with us on the story, and we rush down, and we rush to the car waiting for us down there, and then we go to the place where they have the firefighting, which we know that it happened somewhere in Chalan. Anh biết cái hình này á, cái chỗ này nó là khúc nào không? Nhưng mà khúc này chỗ nào?
À, bên đường rồi. Đúng rồi. Đó bên đường, chỗ cái xe hút cái màu xanh đó.
À,
được. Tường này nè.
À, nó có cái hàng, nó có cái này nè.
Hẻm này đó.
À.
Hẻm vô hẻm đó.
Vậy là ngay đây đó. Vậy là ngay
đâu chỗ này nè.
ngay đây rồi, nó giữa đường, bán ngay giữa đường. I remember I heard the general said that, well, you know, a lot of our people being killed by this guy. He means the prisoner. And I remember he said that, I think Buddha will forgive me.
I remember very well the day this photograph came over the wire because it was in mid-afternoon. And I probably thought to myself something like, son of a bitch, that guy really took a picture. And I took it with me to the preliminary Page One conference and showed it to everybody because I wanted to make sure that it would be published on Page One. So indeed, we did publish it at the top of Page One.
I think the main thing that editors look for is a photograph that is somehow symbolic of a situation. In other words, I think what's interesting about a lot of press photographs is that they tell you very little about the specificity of the situation. They have a hard job actually telling you a story. Most of the really successful press photographs are the ones that actually don't try to tell you too much. They don't give you too much information. They don't try and provide context. They don't provide a complicated view of the situation. What they do provide is a powerful symbol, and that allows, in a way, the photograph to be quite open to a range of interpretations.
I saw this as a picture which was kind of a wake-up call to those in America who still did not believe that, who naively thought we were waging just war. That's what, to me, that was an unjust war. So I was thrilled when the Eddie Adams picture came. It suited my purposes, and fortunately, it suited the purposes of the New York Times.
I never talked with him about the execution photograph at all. And over the years, I know that he's very close with the general. He's very, very close with the general. Even at the funeral, the General Lon funeral, Eddie was there, and I think Eddie, say something about it. And he said, well, he's very sorry about the picture, and because of the picture, make the general, is not a good man.
Certainly, the Vietnam War was the last time in which the White House, the American military, allowed the press relatively free rein over what they took and where they went. Ever since then, the administration has, as much as possible, tried to control the news, and especially the photographic news of their various wars and conflicts. Press photography has become a wing of the propaganda machine of the White House.
I think photographs absolutely can affect public opinion. And I think that's the vital role of journalism. The photographers that I know, and I've been covering wars since Beirut in 1982, I can promise you that every single one of them that I know works from a place of compassion. That's their motivation.
Wat ik sterk aan deze foto vind, is dat je als beschouwer, als kijker, in die helikopter zit. Ik bedoel, er zit niks tussen jou en het onderwerp. Dus als je je daaraan overgeeft, dan ben je even in die golfoorlog. Ben je er onderdeel van. Dus het komt heel dichtbij.
There's something very emotional about experiencing this. As we are right now, I'm seated here in front of these gentlemen very much as I was, I guess, 14 years ago. My knees were touching their knees. We just lifted off. There's these helicopter blades are whirring above us, so the noise is deafening and the helicopter is vibrating. They've just loaded this body bag into the helicopter, and there's the idea that someone's body has been zipped into a vinyl bag that was just seconds ago pulsing with blood through his arteries and heart, and suddenly this body's now this inanimate object thrown into a bag. There was a certain karma to the making of this photograph from the very beginning. My concern was that the Department of Defense, through whom this film would go before it got to these editors, would have the possibility of reading the caption and perhaps deciding to censor the photographs or to not release them. And in a worst case scenario, to lose the film. I mean, that was really my worst nightmare. So I went to the Department of Defense desk, and there was a guy who I had befriended before I went out into the theater of war. It was a good guy, a lieutenant colonel. And I said, Larry, listen, you know this war went much better than anyone ever expected it would. And you know how this war has been marketed on television with all of these Star Wars depictions of how these missiles land on target and that there's no human cause to this on the American side. I said, that's just not fair. If you don't release these photographs, you're really robbing these American soldiers of their due right to the heroism that they had to sacrifice their lives to win this war. And I just think you can understand that. You were in Vietnam, and he says, you know, I take your point. I'm going to release the film and wait until we come back to you before you transmit the pictures. And I took the film into the editor room, and it was processed. And when we edited the film and found this frame, the entire core of photo editors from the world media looked at this frame as it came up on a computer screen, and they all sort of stepped back, and it was a powerful moment. I remember them all saying, you know, immediately, this is the picture of this war, and we've got to transmit it right away.
Het was de meest gepubliceerde foto uit die oorlog. Kijk, als je aan de Amerikaanse kant zat, dan was het een politiek volkomen correcte foto. Maar dan had je twijfels over die oorlog en de manier waarop die gevoerd werd en de legitimiteit van die oorlog en de grond waarop die oorlog werd gevoerd. Ja, dan had je natuurlijk ook alle reden om te denken van, dit is dus die foto juist niet. Dit is niet de foto die representatief is voor deze oorlog. Er waren foto's die de gruwelijkheid en de enormiteit van die oorlog veel beter in beeld brachten. En er waren natuurlijk ook foto's van die enorme kolonne auto's die dan van vluchtende Irakezen terug naar Bagdad, die door die Amerikanen echt, zeg maar een soort van Dresden-achtige scène. Honderden auto's helemaal totaal vernield, uitgebrand, lijken die overal uit en aan hangen. En dat is dan net te gruwelijk.
There is not a single memory, not a single thought that you have that is not an image or not a picture. Nothing. Even our concepts of smell or taste or feel still are images. And the things that become icons are those that touch us in the emotional sense. It's just an incredible act to witness. It was one that the photographer Stuart Franklin, who was beside me when it was finished, we just looked at each other, just kind of almost speechless, and said that was just amazing, you know. I was absolutely sure they were going to shoot him because they just shot some other people, and so an old Army photographer, Al Chang, taught me a number of years ago that when you want to get a tank shooting or something, all you got to do, because the round is so, the sound in the round is so strong, that all you have to do is put tension on the button, and when the tank fires, you'll fire automatically. I remember thinking at that time, if this kid is going to sacrifice his life, I really owe it to him to show what's going to happen. This is somebody who's acting on deep conviction, maybe naively, but you owe it to that person to tell it. To make their life mean something. Because even though they didn't run him over, they did later on. I'm pretty sure of that. They could never produce him.
NBC News special report.
I was so moved today by the bravery of that individual that stood alone in front of the tanks rolling down the main avenue there. And I'll tell you, it was very moving. And all I can say to him, wherever he might be, or the people around the world, is we are and we must stand with him.
Het individu kan een verschil maken. Dat is wat deze foto suggereert. Een individu kan dat hele apparaat stilzetten. Ja, en dat is natuurlijk een geweldig idee. Ik bedoel, dat is toch buitengewoon verleidelijk om daarin te geloven. En dat is wat deze foto... Het is gewoon een droom, deze foto. Dat is wat hij je biedt. Dit is een sprookje. En ja, en sprookjes willen we allemaal natuurlijk wel in geloven.
Well, there's David standing against Goliath. It feeds into the most important mythology of Western civilization, and that is that the individual can make a difference. We were founded with an ideal that we inherited from the Greeks and the Romans, that the hero can win the battle. Many other societies are cooperative societies. Their stories are about teamwork. Our stories tend to be about one man who stood alone and defied conventions, defied the gods, defied an enemy army. And that was just a perfect image to plug into that myth.
The iconic image itself becomes like a tip of an iceberg. It becomes something that people could relate to, but it doesn't have any depth necessarily. It means something different to many people in different ways. And to some people, like the photograph of Tiananmen Square, my understanding is it was in a museum in China to show how the troops themselves were nice enough not to run over the protester, So it's about the patience of the Chinese government and not a young person standing up to the government. They saw it the opposite.
I see Allende here. Okay, this is the file card that shows where the last photo with Salvador Allende is filed here in the archive, and there are the numbers for the files.
The picture of Allende is one that I will never forget because it came to the New York Times where I was working under very strange circumstances. We had a correspondent in Latin America who was offered the picture through an intermediary. And she told us, her name was Marvine Howe, that she couldn't tell, did not know the name of the photographer. And it never occurred to me that we probably never would learn the name of the photographer.
De laatste foto van Allende. Omgebracht door de coupplegers. Zo is de foto ooit beoordeeld bij World Press Photo. En vanuit die achtergrond en context heeft hij de eerste prijs gewonnen. Een bijzonder moment natuurlijk. Hè? Een president van een land die op het punt staat vermoord te worden.
When the New York Times published the photo on page 1, and that was months after the coup, because the coup was 9/11. When the Times published it, it was months later, but it was still newsworthy because it's very rare to see a head of state on the day of revolt, and especially one carrying a gun.
He looked completely silly, if I could say that about a dead martyr, in a military helmet. And he's wearing this sort of happy sweater, if you look at the picture. He's not a revolutionary at the barricades. He looks exactly like you and I would be if suddenly we were told, hey, there's a revolution. We wouldn't be dressed for revolution. Revolutionaries tend to be dressed for revolution. He wasn't a revolutionary, and he wasn't a military figure. So the ironies in this image sort of pile up as a symbol of something that wasn't an icon by any visual feature, but it was an icon because it sort of sums up a lot of events that occurred during the era when in Latin America, military governments were overthrowing civilian governments.
Well, I am absolutely convinced that this is the real last picture of Salvador Allende alive on September 11, 1973. What happened is, it was around 9:20 a.m. We were in the square alone. Allende, he opens the balcony, looks towards Morandé Street, so towards his right and then towards his left. Very briefly, and he started getting back inside. I recognized him. I had photographed him in May '73 in Argentina, and I started shouting. I would shout Allende, Allende, and my friend Oneto, much more respectful than I, would say, Mr. President, Mr. President. And so these kids were passing by. They heard us shouting, and Allende heard us shouting, and some of them would applaud him. Others would just look at them. And on hindsight, I think that Allende actually was kind of taking stock, probably checking the Carabinero had abandoned him, but taking stock of the fact that he might not be able to see the light of the day again. And then he waved 3-4 times, and he got it back inside. And this, no doubt, these fellows, no doubt, were the last civilians that were not with Allende inside of the presidential palace who saw him alive.
But it's not much of a picture. You can't even see Allende's face as he waves. The biggest face in the photograph is a young man, a student perhaps, and he's not even looking at Allende. It's not a great photograph. Whereas here, he's coming toward the camera, he's under tension, he has a gun in his hand, surrounded by anxious supporters. And it's no wonder that this won a great prize. It has the true look of the end of the Allende regime in Chile. It's the photograph that most forcefully shows Allende's last moments.
La fotografia è la memoria storica dell'umanità. Ciò che ricorderemo in futuro, gli avvenimenti che sono successi, saranno veri solamente perché ci sono state fatte delle fotografie. Allora, solamente per questa ragione quegli avvenimenti sono una realtà. E in futuro si ricorderanno gli avvenimenti solamente attraverso le immagini che abbiamo.
If you read history books today, like the ones in our American high schools, or you read most books about the Vietnam War, they will always have the following phrase to describe this picture. This was the picture that shocked the American people and turned them against the war in Vietnam. That has become encrusted like a thick jelly around this image. It is absolutely not the case. In fact, when newspapers printed this picture, they got a lot of letters saying, boy, we need more General Loans. If we had more people like him, maybe we'd be winning the war. South Vietnam, we should elect him president of South Vietnam. So there was part of a reaction to public opinion saying, well, you know, who cares about a Viet Cong suspect? These are the people who are killing our soldiers over there. Why should I feel sympathetic for them? This is fascinating when you go back and look at, because it is absolutely against the popular myth of this picture.
Images bury history, and there's a way that once an image becomes an icon and is activated, it's the truth, whatever else people come later to say about it.
The picture is not truthful. The picture is not truthful because when you see this picture, you immediately think that they are going to face the enemy 50 meters away. That is why the picture is not truthful. But that is us. It's not the picture. I mean, it's where we see our own metaphor. That's right. More than truthful or untruthful, I would use the word misleading. Because to be untruthful is a decision. To be misleading is a consequence. I mean, I do not believe that the photographer who took this picture was taking the picture and was saying to himself, now with this picture, I'm going to mislead humanity. No, not at all, not at all. I mean, we gave the picture we put into the picture our own ghosts, our wishes, our needs.
How do we remember Tiananmen? Most people today, if they remember Tiananmen, remember it because of this one image. And we wanted those students to be sort of our ideals of what we want our world to be like. And so that there's an almost mythological picture to sum up Tiananmen for us seems almost completely appropriate.
Io, per esempio, con mia moglie, eravamo fidanzati e stavo facendo delle fotografie di moda per Vogue. Erano vestiti da sposa di Saint Laurent. C'era questo fantastico vestito da sposa di Saint Laurent. Allora mia moglie faceva la modella. Era vestita così da sposa, guarda che bella. Mi sono messo di fianco a lei e io ero in blu jean, una camicia, bianca però molto chic, e il mio assistente mi ha fatto una foto. Poi quando ho visto la foto ho detto, Scisti, siamo sposati. Per sposarci non bisogna andare dal prete, bisogna andare dal fotografo. Abbiamo mandato a tutti la fotografia che eravamo sposati e da quel giorno lì eravamo sposati. Quando poi ci siamo sposati veramente, dopo 7-8 anni, avevamo già i bambini, quindi dovevamo sposarci, mandammo la foto ufficiale del matrimonio, nessuno ci credeva più. La mamma di mia moglie non ha tirato giù la vecchia foto e ha messo quella vera, no, ha tenuto la vecchia foto falsa del matrimonio. Non si crede più nella verità, si crede in ciò che è nell'immagine.
I think that images, photographic images, press images become icons partly because they do this when they are part of a history, a visual history that we all carry around with us all the time and aren't aware of necessarily. But the man on the box is certainly one of those kinds of images, and I went to find precedents for it in many different places. I mean, another referent for me in the gesture of the man on the box with his hands out like that, I did at one point think of Nickat's photograph of the Vietnamese girl running from an accidental dropping of napalm by the South Vietnamese. She's in the middle of the frame. She has her hands out trying to hold it away from her body because she's burned by napalm. But I think that kind of reference that someone like me who looks at images all the time and probes for these things would find, I don't know whether most people looking at the image would necessarily think of that, but it's there anyway. These things started showing up in San Francisco and New York, just on walls everywhere, and it was something put together by a graphic agitprop group called Forkscrew, who used the iPod ads as a takeoff in order to make a comment about the war in Iraq.
From time to time, important journalistic photographs have explicit references to the history of art. The famous photograph of the Abu Ghraib victim recalls the look of a crucifixion. So there are references to Christian tradition. The Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange again recalls the Madonna and Child tradition of imagery. Christian imagery, and particularly for us in the West, has a resonance, and often you see elements of it recurring in some of these more famous photographs. Because when these photographers are in the process of composing them, what they're calling on in their mind's eye is a history of imagery with which they're already familiar, and various compositional rules that often are derived from the history of art. And I think one of the interesting things about these iconic photojournalistic images is the degree to which they themselves produce further images.
I've certainly had so many people around the world comment that they feel a certain universality in this photograph, a timeless quality. I happen to think that, color in this instance has a temporal quality. It takes you very much into the visual color iconography of the uniforms, of the war machinery of the war in 1991, and when you remove that color, these army uniforms, they take on the gray tones and the textures of military uniforms that could be in any era of war that we've come to know in photographs.
It's like a World War II kind of photograph. Here's my colleague, my buddy, my friend, and I'm weeping because of his death. That's something that we saw from the 1940s You know, certainly all the World War II movies that came afterwards, it would be these heroic American soldiers, like I'm sure in many, many countries, and they suffer for each other.
I recall it mostly because it reminds me, for example, of photographs that Larry Burroughs took of American servicemen in Vietnam of a very similar sort. That is, tough guys crying over a fallen comrade. In other words, it's a kind of kitsch genre of photojournalism which is now repeated in every conflict. Photojournalists look for it, they find it, they reproduce it, but they reproduce it because they know it's already iconic. So this is one of those examples where a kind of photograph, in fact drawn from an earlier tradition of photojournalism, repeats its own motifs, partly because it knows that the audience recognizes and understands that motifs, partly because they've already seen that such photographs are powerful and that they sell.
Fotografie is namelijk ook gewoon een beroep. Het zijn natuurlijk ook gewoon jongens die pas door het publiceren van hun foto's hun geld verdienen. Dus op het moment dat je allemaal foto's maakt die nooit gepubliceerd worden, ja, dan... Dus ook daarin zit al een soort van keuzes. Ik bedoel, je weet wel ongeveer wat die man achter het bureau thuis van je wil en verwacht. En daar ga je ook wel naar op zoek. Dat probeer je ook wel te maken.
At the New York Times, not often, but I definitely suppressed pictures that were just too terrible to be published. I remember pictures of rotting corpses in Cambodia taken by John Giannini, a very fine photographer, and these showed maggots crawling over the faces of the dead. And they couldn't be published. I can't think of publishing them to this day.
I giornali che pubblicano e le televisioni sono dei prodotti che vanno venduti. Un giornale è come un gelato, deve avere il cioccolato, la crema, la panna, no, chantilly sopra, e quindi va fatto in modo che la gente compri, perché il giornale è un prodotto che si compra, e nel giornale, oltre questo, ci sono le pagine di pubblicità di prodotti di consumo. Queste fotografie di reportage, il reportage non è altro che la pubblicità della pubblicità. Quindi io ho preferito fare le foto di pubblicità. È molto più onesto fotografare un maglione o una bicicletta o un'automobile, che sono forse la ragione delle guerre.
I stand by my belief in the role of the messenger, whether it be the photographer or the writer or the cameraman or the TV correspondent, of bringing home to people around the world a sense of the reality that is involved with the tragedy of conflict. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. Conflict is always tragic. I mean, I had been now in the desert for several months, and they talk about athletes being in a kind of zone where you become sort of unconscious and things go into slow motion, and you don't know why you go to the right place. You don't know why you perform so naturally without even thinking, and things just sort of go right. And I was in that kind of a zone. I knew before it happened, and then witnessed what I knew was going to happen, which is they loaded the body bag into the helicopter. I got in, and we lifted off, and the medic on the right in the photograph, sitting next to the body bag, suddenly reached over and handed the dog tag and the ID card of the dead soldier to the medic behind Ken, and it was at that moment that Ken realized that the soldier in the body bag was one of his best friends, had been killed. And it was at that moment that I made this picture. In that 500th of a second, you see everything. You see every minute element that's happening in a 35 millimeter frame across the frame. And I could see the composition, I could see the different layers of this photograph, from the right-hand side, the body bag and the medic, and the arm extended, and the soldier in the middle whose face is bandaged. I mean, I felt all of those things in that instant.
Stuart and I had spent a great part of the night out on the balcony from the Beijing hotel, just trying to shoot whatever we could, but also just trying not to get hit because there was a lot of bullets flying around. And in the morning, the troops had lined up in two lines across, blocking the avenue. And Stuart and I both were getting very low on film. I was shooting sparingly. I wasn't motoring down because you didn't know what was going to happen, and you just damn sure didn't want to be changing film when it happened. So I was just kind of sniping. I was shooting every key moment that I could that I thought was going to be key, but you were just holding your breath because I knew I was getting near the end of this roll. And I think I shot about 15 frames. Yeah, that's about all I had left. And I believe that frame is like 34 or 35. It was right on the end of the roll. And there's a lot of things that are very fortunate in this day. That you got really nice light, that you've got a clear background, that you've got a guy who's wearing a white shirt against a green tank. I mean, if he'd been wearing a brown shirt, we'd have lost him because he has black hair, and that fades right into almost to the lamp area here on the tank. With a green or brown shirt, you wouldn't even hardly have seen him.
It's incredible because you see it's his last human moment, his last moment alive. It's an incredible expression. General Lone stands there, impassive. There's no emotion shown in his face. It's just as though he's flushing a toilet.
Adams had taken the picture, had depressed the shutter at the exact moment that the bullet from a .38 caliber police special gun enters the man's brain.
I remember I turned my camera on. I used a big camera, an Oricon, with 360 feet of film. And with that roll of film, you can record it over 10 minutes or so. So very easy. And the camera is on my shoulder, and the lens open, and I just flip the switch on, and that's rolling. It's happened so fast. When I film it, I do not pay much attention about other people. What they're doing, I don't know. But it happened like this. There's somebody walked past my camera, very close. So the whole sequence of the execution on my camera film lost, I think, 3 or 4 pictures because somebody passing by very fast in front of the lens. And those few frames happened right at the moment Eddie Adams get the picture of the execution.
Siamo curiosi di vedere che faccia ha uno che sta morendo. Caravaggio, si dice che Caravaggio, per capire l'espressione della morte, uccise una persona, per vedere che espressione ha qualcuno che sta morendo violentemente, non che muore normale, di morte umana, di morte fatta dall'uomo, morte violenta.
certainly there is an element of fascination with looking at horrific subjects. Because as you say, when you're looking at them, you're safe, you're comfortable, you're not in danger, you're not there, but you're seeing it as if you were there. And there's a fundamental pleasure in just that.
Quando c'è un incidente automobilistico, ci sono i modi, tutti si fermano a guardare, però non vorrebbero vedere. Non vogliono vedere, ma vogliono guardare. Anzi, vogliono guardare, ma non vogliono vedere. Non so se guardare e vedere, ma comunque è così. Non si fa, però si fa.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that we are right in a place. It was a very historical situation happened here in 1968. Have you ever seen this photo before? Yes. This one is very popular. And you know that we are right now in this area. And you see that this area is, the house is just over there. Yes. And this story happened in the year 1968. And this photo was taken by Eddie Adams, very popular at the time, before 1975 in Vietnam. It was very violent photo, but we don't blame on him because just the war in Vietnam. In war, we cannot say who is good or bad. In war, everyone have to kill the others.
That struck me in looking at all of these images and also looking at the other images from World Press Photo through the years is that they often have to do with the things that lost. I mean, Allende lost, the South Vietnamese lost, the protesters at Tiananmen lost. They were routed and crushed. And I hadn't noticed that before in looking at them, but they often have to do with the side that lost and disappeared. And that attracts people to them and makes them fulfilling. They're comforting in that way because they're about the end. They don't require further action. They don't require anything of us because it's over. I'm convinced that to understand how we project onto these images, you really have to go back long before the invention of photography or the invention of technical images to a time when there were things, when icons meant sacred images, when images were thought of not so much as representations but as emanations. The icon, the image itself was sacred. Some need in us, which was played out with sacred icons, I think got transplanted onto technical images when they were invented, so that we need to believe these things, and we do, even now when any photograph can be digitized and manipulated at will and changed completely. So there's no reason why we should believe any photograph has some undeniable relation to physical reality. It doesn't anymore. It shouldn't. I mean, we shouldn't believe any image that you see in a newspaper or magazine, but we still do.
Una volta la gente entrava in chiesa, vedeva Gesù Cristo, non c'era nessun altro mezzo di comunicazione se non la chiesa. Il potere della chiesa si manifestava attraverso le icone religiose, no? Poi è stata al servizio della politica, no? Il culto della personalità, i regimi o comunisti o fascisti o imperialisti, sempre al servizio, con i giornali, con le reti televisive, con tutto quello che sono i mezzi della comunicazione moderna. E al servizio dell'industria, per far vedere i prodotti e per spingere il consumo. Perché senza consumo non esisterebbe il mercato. Senza mercato non ci sarebbero i poteri politici e non ci sarebbero neanche i giornali, non ci sarebbero le televisioni. Allora, la comunicazione è al servizio di un potere e il potere, per stabilirsi in modo potente, serio, ha bisogno di creare delle icone. Cosa vuol dire? Che tutti noi che crediamo nelle icone siamo dei servi del potere. Abbiamo bisogno di giustificazioni, vogliamo essere giustificati, che ci sia qualcuno che prenda i nostri peccati, qualcuno che faccia vedere che siamo cattivi, sì, però non così cattivi, c'è sempre qualcuno che in fondo paga per tutti, no? C'è qualcuno che paga per tutti, lui paga per tutti. Allora è sempre un fatto di consolazione, autoindulgenza, l'icona. Così almeno ci togliamo la vera responsabilità.
This one, right? February 91. Yeah, David Turnley was in the chopper, and then he told me, he asked if he can go ahead and get my name, and if it was all right to publish it. I told him, yeah. I told him go ahead and publish it, not knowing that the outcome would be as big as it was. You know, being the photo of the war, it takes me back to that moment in time. It's like my personal emotions are being shown to the world, where, you know, there should be maintained as a private. You know, for me, it should be private grieving. But like I said, it's a yes and no type of question. I mean, I like I said, I don't regret him publishing it at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. I don't regret it, no. But had I known that he caught me in that moment of time, I don't think I would have told him to publish it. Something that I don't want to keep looking at, you know. It just, like I said, it's just something. It's burned in my mind forever, and I will never forget it.
Om 5 minuter så blir det nyheter från Aktuellt här i 2:an. Men före det så ska det handla om hur bra det kan vara att stanna upp en liten stund ibland och titta sig omkring.